Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. We are back at it again with another game preview. And this week, it is, of course, Iowa versus Illinois. And a lot of the same storylines that presented themselves last year are similar storylines that present themselves this year with a few added twists. Number one, Illinois is a lot better than they were last year, or at the very least, they are definitely improved. Iowa has an elite defense and elite special teams, but the offense is absolutely abysmal. And you also have the storyline of Brett Bielema coming off of a victory against a school, a former school that he coached for in the Wisconsin Badgers. And now, after that week, he is playing against his alma mater in the Iowa Hawkeyes. And I also believe Brett Bielema did coach for the Iowa Hawkeyes as well. So there's a lot of different storylines. And what makes this even more intriguing is that the Big Ten West is completely wide open. Now, I want to get a few things straight here before we get going. I thought that this was fairly evident in previous videos, but I do want to say it right off the bat. Obviously, I am previewing this coming from a perspective of being a fan of the University of Iowa. So, but with that being said, I will try and be as unbiased as I can. Last week when Iowa played Michigan, Michigan fans just being Michigan, came after me for not being as fair as I could to the Michigan Wolverines. So it is what it is, but I did just want to clear that right off the bat that I am definitely an Iowa Hawkeye fan, ergo the signs in the back, and it is what it is. All right, folks, without further ado, let's get into this. There has been so much that has transpired at the beginning stages of this football season. You have had Nebraska fire their head coach in Scott Frost. And as recently as this past week, Wisconsin decided to fire Paul Chryst, who had been a pretty successful coach. I mean, let's be honest here. After losing to Brett Bielema and Illinois pretty convincingly. And the parallels that, because those things don't necessarily have anything to do with this game specifically, but as far as Iowa goes, Wisconsin was probably the closest team resembling the Iowa Hawkeyes as far as scheme and things like that and how they like to play the game of football. And the Wisconsin offense was just not getting it done. They just were not evolving. They had plenty of talent at or in the offensive room and just weren't getting it done. And Wisconsin decided that enough was enough. Now, you look at the Iowa Hawkeyes and you say, well, Iowa may even be in worse shape than Wisconsin offensively. And folks, it probably is so. I hate to say it, but Iowa definitely has had struggles. And unfortunately, because I see all the comments and things like that, the problems go far deeper than just blaming Spencer Petras. I get it. Spencer Petras is an average quarterback, and I totally agree with that. But the offensive line has had issues. The running game has not been great. Iowa has been decimated at the wide receiver. And you couple all that with the fact that the scheme the Iowa Hawkeyes roll out onto the field is really, really outdated. And you end up getting what we have seen in the first couple of games so far this year. I want to read this little excerpt from rivals.com. I think a lot of people thought that it was written by me. It was not. It was definitely a good write-up. I would love to take credit for it, but it was not written by me. And I think it sums up the situation of the Iowa Hawkeye offense really, really well. You guys can go find it at rivals.com. Before we take a look at the team stats for both Illinois and Iowa, let's take a look at this. The Wolverines used to look something like Iowa, establish the run, then run more, and be more physical and commanding that way. It was the way of Michigan football, and it worked until it didn't. And then Coach Jim Harbaugh bit the bullet and added more wrinkles so he could win. Alabama was similar a decade or so ago under Coach Nick Saban, who wanted to run the ball and complained about spread offenses being unsafe and questioned whether the sport should go in the inevitable direction it was going. But instead of getting left behind, Saban changed, and now the Crimson Tide average more than 48 points per game. Iowa hasn't scored 48 points since the Maryland game last season, and the Hawkeyes have scored 41 total points in their last 2 games combined. Here are some stats to consider. Iowa is not only dead last in the Big Ten in points per game at 16.4, but the Hawkeyes are also last in rushing offense at 88.2 yards per outing and passing offense at 154 yards per game. So in other words, they're last in the Big Ten in every major statistical category. So it's not like Iowa is grinding down defenses with the run like years past and controlling the clock to win games, which I have pointed that out to you many, many times. I've said that it goes far deeper than just the passing game, because Iowa does, their biggest issue is they don't have an identity. They say that they want to be balanced, but yet they really have an undertone of wanting to be more of a ground and pound team. And so you just end up having a little bit of, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and none of it really works well. Brian Ferentz and the Iowa offense just kind of hopes for the best with a little bit of this and that. So anyways, Spencer Petras, who broke some of Jared Goff's records at Kentfield, California, Marin Catholic, is second to last in the Big Ten behind only Rutgers' Evan Simon in passing offense. LaShawn Williams is the number 17 running back in the conference in rushing, and Caleb Johnson is number 22. No receiver among the top 25 in the Big Ten. I know Kirk Ferentz knows how to coach football. I'm not stupid, but adapt or die is the truth, and it bleeds down into recruiting where skilled players are hesitant to come play in Iowa City because they know they're not going to showcase their abilities much. I don't expect Iowa to become Mississippi State, but being more imaginative and letting skilled players use their skills needs to happen there more. Folks, I could not have said it better myself. Now, the only thing that I would point out is with the addition of Kelton Copeland and some other position coaches, Iowa has actually recruited fairly well at skill positions. High 3 stars, low 4 stars. Arlen Bruce and Keegan Johnson were 4-star wide receivers. Brody Brecht, high 3-star, with many, many other high major offers. And those aren't even the only 3 with that. Caleb Johnson was a 4-star running back. Gavin Williams, high 3-star. I could go on and on. So hopefully things change, folks. Fans are getting more and more upset. There's basically 2 camps that exist within the Iowa Hawkeye fan base. There's the group who says that we need to be positive at all costs, no matter what. They're just kids. And then you have the group who says, no, we're just, all we're asking for is for the offense to be average. That is it. And I think, as I said, either way, Iowa fans are getting more and more frustrated. All right, let's take a look at the team statistics here. ESPN Football Power Index gives Illinois a 60.1% chance of winning this game. I've said this many times before. The Power Index has never been a fan of Iowa because of how poor Iowa's offense is. Computer stats don't really take into account the intangibles as much as the human eye can. But nonetheless, that I'm pretty surprised that it is 60.1%. I thought it was going to be 55 to 45. Anyways, passing yards, DeVito has 1,121 yards, 9 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Spencer Petras, who is a third-year starting quarterback, has only 770 yards, 2 touchdowns to 2 INTs. Rushing yards, Caleb Johnson, 41 carries for 206 yards, 3 touchdowns. C. Brown has 120 carries for 733 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's becoming wildly evident that the reason why Illinois has been successful is because they do what Iowa says that they want to do far better, at least to this point in the season. Receiving yards, Sam Laporte had 21 receptions for 178 yards. P. Bryant, who Iowa did recruit out of the state of Florida, has 16 receptions for 313 yards and 2 touchdowns. Let's go down to the spread here. Illinois are 3.5-point favorites. The over and under for this game is 35.5. The team stats here, points per game, Iowa averages 16.4 compared to Illinois 29.4. That is just embarrassing. Points allowed per game, 10. Illinois is only allowing 8.4. Wow. Total yards, Iowa puts up 242.2. Illinois puts up 424.6. Yards passing, 154 to 230. Yards rushing, 88 to 194. Yards allowed, 254.4 to 229.2. Passing yards, 161.6 to 159. And rushing yards allowed, 92.8 to 70.2. Let's look at the last 5 for each team here. Illinois, their schedule has not been daunting, okay? And I did want to make a point of pointing this out. The Wisconsin victory, here's the thing. It's either Illinois beat a team who is far worse than people realized, or they beat a team who was legitimately as good as people thought. Or it's somewhere in between. And that's what the answer probably is, that it's somewhere in between. Wisconsin was not as good, but they weren't as bad either as most people thought. I told you guys going into the season that I was not, Wisconsin was picked, I think, 3rd or 4th to finish in the Big Ten West by me. I was not a big believer in Wisconsin. So I don't want to get too worked up about Illinois' victory over Wisconsin. I will say on the surface, it looks impressive to go into Madison and beat Wisconsin the way they did. Iowa, of course, lost to Michigan 27-14, and they did have their moments to make it closer than the score indicates right there, which of course did not happen. They beat Rutgers 27-10, Nevada 27-0, and there are the scores there. Illinois lost to Indiana. I believe that was this season. So there you guys have it again. And here is the likely weather in Champaign, Illinois. So there you guys have it. The team stats for this game. Illinois definitely is better in a lot of categories than the Iowa Hawkeyes. I would say that Iowa definitely is the more talented team on paper going into this game. Not that Illinois doesn't have talent, but, it is what it is. And this is really an interesting game. I think that this is probably, and now each week you think that this is the most important game of the year. But this game for the Iowa Hawkeyes really can change things up. It can be one of those games that was the deciding factor in the direction of the season. And it could be that way for Illinois as well. I can absolutely see Illinois beating Iowa and taking that momentum forward towards, maybe not the Big Ten championship game, but having a very successful season. I can see this being a turning point for the Iowa Hawkeyes to get back on track and become the football team that they are supposed to become, or that I thought they could be at the beginning of the season. All right, guys, moving on to the player grades, the Pro Football Focus player grades. You guys can go check them out yourselves. I'm not going to be showing each and every grade, but obviously Tommy DeVito is having a better season than Spencer Petras. It just is what it is there. Tommy DeVito is 48th, Spencer Petras 187, and Tommy has a grade of an 82.8. Here are the wide receiver grades. I took the minimum snap count off. The top rated receiver for Iowa is Nico Reganey. Illinois has 2 pretty high rated wide receivers in Pat Bryant and Isaiah Williams. The next highest guy is Arland Bruce. And I got to tell you guys, I am extremely disappointed in how Iowa has used Arland Bruce this season. He's a wide receiver, but the guy is a multifaceted player. I mean, he played running back / wide receiver in high school. We saw what he could do at running back last year. So I'm disappointed in how Iowa has used him. I mean, they pretty much have just used him in a wide receiver role, and the creativity just has not been there. Iowa has seen an emergence of Brody Brecht. I'm looking forward to seeing Deontay Vines down the line and Keegan Johnson. I'm not sure how much of a difference it will make because at the end of the day, I still do think Iowa has the talent at wide receiver to move the chains, to do what they need to do, and they still just have not done that. Here are the running back grades. I think right now for Iowa, they're kind of stuck in a tough spot because I think going into the season, they expected to be a three-headed committee at the running back position, which they have been for much of the year. But Caleb Johnson has flashed lead back potential. I think LaShawn Williams has shown that a little bit. Gavin Williams, not so much, but in fairness to Gavin, he has been injured, and he is, according to Pro Football Focus, the highest graded running back. Well, not highest. Caleb Johnson is. If you take the minimum snap count away, Gavin Williams is the top rated running back for Iowa. You guys can see Reggie Love here has a pretty good grade as well. So, I think they need to figure out who their legit top guy is. My expectation is that by the end of the year, it will be Caleb Johnson. And Gavin and LaShawn will be more complementary backs. But time will tell if that ends up being the case. I'm going to show a couple more positions here. Like I said, I'm not going to be showing them all. If you want to go look at them all, you can. Of course, the opposing team fans always say, well, you didn't show this position because we have a really highly graded guy. I promise you, this is totally random, the positions I choose. Luke Lachey has quietly been having a decent season for the Hawkeyes. I think that definitely is a storyline to monitor. And I told you guys before the season that the tight end group for the Iowa Hawkeyes was my I guess underrated group that could propel this Iowa team forward. Sam Laporta is a legit tight end. And if Luke Lackey, aka Luke Lackey, continues to improve, I think the Iowa Hawkeyes will be in better shape. So that is a storyline to monitor. And the last position group that I am going to present here is the linebacking group. Of course, Jack Campbell just having a phenomenal season. But for Illinois, Isaac Darkangelo, I think is how you say it, is having a pretty good season. Seth Benson is a little bit lower rated than I expected, but he still has a good grade of a 73. That's not bad. Let me take the minimum snap count off. Let's see if Jay Higgins had a great game against Michigan last week. That's a storyline to watch here moving forward. The good news, there's always a silver lining to everything. As bad as it is that Justin Jacobs got injured, I would say that the good news is, well, not the good news, but I guess an angle to look at is that Iowa's linebacking core will have experience yet again next year, whether Jack Campbell decides to come back or Justin Jacobs decides to come back. If I were to predict it right now, I would say Jack Campbell is going to be gone and Justin Jacobs will return, which Iowa will be in good shape at the linebacking position with guys who have had legitimate experience. So, like I said, not necessarily good news, but an angle to look at would be that other Iowa linebackers are getting some reps. All right, folks, it is prediction time for Iowa versus Illinois. As I said at the beginning of this video, this is a very interesting game, and I do think that this game potentially has season-long implications for both teams. Is Illinois officially ready to compete at the top of the Big Ten West? They potentially showed that they are against Wisconsin, but for me, Wisconsin was not a top of the Big Ten West. The top teams are Iowa, Minnesota. Those would be the top two teams, and for me in the Big Ten West, anyways. And if they are able to take down Iowa, then I do think that would essentially answer that question. The Big Ten West is down, so a path to the Big Ten championship is still absolutely there for the Iowa Hawkeyes. They still absolutely have a lot to play for. And regardless of the Iowa Hawkeye offense, fans, you have to admit that before the season, even with the highest of expectations, not a lot of people thought that Iowa could beat Michigan. I did myself, and I was incorrect about that, before the season started. But point is that we haven't necessarily been let down by the result. I would say the only result that was a letdown was the loss to Iowa State, and there still is a lot to play for, and Iowa still does have a lot of time to get things back on track. Now, as far as, and again, the storylines of Brett Bielema, his former alma mater in the Iowa Hawkeyes, all of that, Wisconsin firing their head coach, Nebraska, the Big Ten West, all of that are definitely interesting storylines. This game is in Champaign, yada, yada, yada. I already said that I believe Iowa has the more talented team. I do also believe that they have the more talented defense going into this game. I don't think Iowa's confidence is necessarily down and out. And Kirk Ferentz continues to assure us that he sees positive growth at the offensive position. As for what I think, just myself going into this game, I don't believe that we will see a ton of improvement from the Iowa Hawkeye offense. I think the most that we can hope for is that Iowa becomes mediocre. And do I think that's possible? Sure. I do think Iowa can score enough points against Illinois to beat them. And I also got to tell you guys this, folks, with where Iowa has been, regardless of Illinois beating Wisconsin this past week, if Iowa were to drop this game, it would be an absolute travesty. Okay. You got to understand where both these programs have been over the last 5 years. Illinois has been a complete dumpster fire. Now, I know just because they were a dumpster fire doesn't necessarily mean, doesn't necessarily dictate what they are now, but Iowa is the more talented team. They should win this game. That is why Wisconsin fired their coach, because it was unacceptable that they lost to an Illinois team that has been terrible. Okay. And Wisconsin and Iowa have been in the same boat in that they've been trying to get over the hump and become officially a top of the top of the Big Ten. They're top of the Big Ten West, but they're not necessarily a top of the Big Ten. So again, if Iowa were to lose this game, it would be a travesty. And even though Illinois is favored in this game, Iowa, in my opinion, absolutely should win this game. They're more talented. I am arrogantly hopeful and maybe ignorantly hopeful that they can score enough points, whether it be because of great field position, Iowa's defense getting points on the board. I think Iowa can put up enough points to win this game. I am going to take the Iowa Hawkeyes to win this game 24-17. I don't have a ton of confidence in that pick, and I got to tell you, I would not be surprised if Illinois won this game. And as I already said, this game to me has a lot of implications for both teams and their trajectory for the rest of this season. All right, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Who are you predicting to win this game, Iowa or Illinois? What storylines are you interested in checking out for this game? Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share. You know the drill. The channel is continuing to grow massively because you guys are the best fans in the world, and I thank you for that. Last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow and facts are feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.